Cats, Cops, and C4. "Milady, we're in sensor range of Centrus," Jalasi tells her, and she looks up from her studies before nodding and going back to them. She was refamiliarizing herself with the laws of Centrus during their travels. However, the real sticking point is that it wasn't so much a single unique series of laws to the planet as a gigantic tangled mess of jurisdictions. Federal law only applied to individual spires and plates, and each individual level of a spire could have its own municipal bylaws and far, far more. It was honestly a fascinating study, especially where jurisdictions started to clash with each other, or the fact that many women would attempt to claim no woman's land between the spires, forgetting that they expand below them and they're still in the airspace, and therefore sovereign territory of one spire or another. There was, in fact, no portion of Centrus that wasn't claimed for one jurisdiction or another, and with all the mixing, the law had defaulted into the legal system that the home spire of the victim used to determine court proceedings. It was a compromise option, something that was more than common within Centrus. Some parts of the galaxy like to have more polarized decisions. In the periphery, you tended to find them, with things being decided once and for all with each decision. It led to some truly fascinating rulings and tended to stop problems from picking up later. But in the rarer circumstances they did pick up later, it was a lot more personal and usually fairly vicious. More civilized parts of the galaxy usually went for softer solutions that didn't leave everyone completely happy, but left them with enough that if they were to try and challenge things, they would likely be putting something they wanted to keep at risk. So it generally had gentler flare-ups and contests, but far, far more of them. Pick your pain. Few but brutal contests to rulings, or many gentle ones. There is a ringing tone, and her central left arm grabs one of her communicators. This one was a private one that existed to prevent certain issues that only a small portion of the galaxy ever had to deal with. It is a text message asking for a meeting. She replies that she was planning on asking her for one after landing. There's a laughing image, and then Rakaxa sends her coordinates and a time. She has a meeting to get to. Well, that was a bust. The other room where her supplies were being given to her was not only heavily guarded, but the guard noticed her probe and was glaring down at her. From the angle, the little burst of axiom gave her the man looked to be roughly the same size as a Volcanador, which, while fascinating as a woman, was a damn problem as an escapee. Even if his chest muscles alone looked big enough for her to lay across, and she shakes her head and focuses. She's always liked her men big, fluffy if she could get it, but she wanted to be able to climb her man like a tree. And while it was flattering to have a whole mountain of man just waiting to be climbed, she really needed to figure a way out. Now, from the looks of it, that room he was in was barely big enough for him. So if she were to make a go for that room, which would instantly trigger an alarm, she would have to be plastered up against the ceiling in a corner or scuttling around at his feet. One gives her more than better odds she'll be spotted and instantly grabbed. The other stepped on, then spotted and grabbed. No, the question is, will that give her the opening she needs? It will have the subtlety of a blast of plasma to the nether regions. But is that what she needs? Not likely, but it is something to consider. Your lawyer has arrived. During the meeting, the cameras will be turned off as per their filing of your rights to legal representation and the confidentiality it implies. There are motion sensors on all exits and entrances, and they will reactivate all cameras, microphones, and axiom detecting equipment the moment they are tripped. This is your fair and legal warning of such, the voice over the speaker says. 1 minute, human. First, we must address the appalling way in which my client is being detained. A 4-meter by 4-meter cell is insufficient for a flight-capable species and can be construed as a form of excessive containment as detailed in Elmira vs. Goodfeather. However, a massive flight risk requires appropriate containment as detailed in our filings. Your client has proven themselves extremely adverse to cooperating with legal authority and therefore must be contained appropriately. You have yet to conclusively prove that my client was the individual responsible for those teleportations, and I find it highly suspect that there are numerous such cuts in the supposed chase of my client. Madam, we have clearly recorded axiom effects through our equipment. As operated by a species that has access and knowledge of axiom for a period of time shorter than that of a toddler. How very compelling. You do recall that we are an organization that has more than humans comprising it, correct? I'm sure the pirates, pardon me privateers, in your employ are extremely trustworthy and law-abiding citizens. However, an actually accredited expert of axiom conduct and use will be required before any judgments in that regard are properly official. Unfortunately, due to her connections, proven or otherwise, to an extremely dangerous criminal known to vanish at the slightest opportunity, we are forced to err on the side of caution for the safety of the public. The voice returns. I will be filing a cease and desist order. Janet snaps. Go ahead, but until you find a judge willing to take the risk of a high-profile criminal escaping due to their direct commands, Miss Comet is going to stay in that cell. The voice states, and Janet glares up at the nearest camera. Glare all you want unless you can project death lasers through the digital space and have it crash into me through the screen. All you're doing is mildly amusing me. I see, Janet growls out. Turn off the cameras. I must speak to my client in private. Detention area going on high alert as the inner cameras and sensors are going down in T-5, 4, 3, 2, 1. High alert established and cameras shut off. Please press a blue button or touch a door to reactivate the cameras and microphones. Your mother sucks cocks in hell, Janet suddenly states, glaring upwards. You humans are pathetic, short-lived, and shorter-sighted creatures that will crash and burn in an old and established galaxy. You will only accomplish anything by whoring out your species, and even then it will be to being slightly better than average-treated prostitutes. I think that they either have a thicker skin than anticipated or are, in fact, not listening in, Juliet notes. Or they've simply deactivated the microphone. However, their technologies include non-axiom variants of many things, so I cannot be certain. Janet says, giving the area a harsh glare. The Panseros woman finally sits down and holds up a data slate she then causes to hover in front of Juliet's cell so she can read it. The tiny flickers of text across the woman's glasses shows that she's accessing the microcomputer there to keep her information up to date. Miss Comet, things are not looking good. I've issued multiple challenges of all sorts, and many of them have been defeated already. Whatever reason there was to have a massive cloning facility underneath your residence has painted a stark black brush across your appearance, and their capture of several criminal agents that are already decrying you as their master makes things worse. The bomb in your desk, whatever the source, is also a terrible appearance. And to make things even worse, the chain of custody for the bulk of this evidence has all been expertly maintained by police. The bulk? What can we shift away from me? 2 murders, unwitnessed and the perpetrator unknown, but the pattern well known. However, the third would-be victim was rescued, and a second attempt was tried and failed. This second attempt caused the killer to be apprehended while wearing a dangerous axiom artifact that has been found on all the clones underneath your mansion, Janet says. Now, you've done well in stating your innocence. However, if this is a frame job, it's extremely thorough and yet simultaneously sloppy. Sloppy? There were files found on the main computer detailing how a woman was trying to frame you. However, there's important details in there that are missing. It seems half-baked at best. Janet explains and Juliet nods as she crosses her arms to think. It was half-baked, or rather, barely even a quarter done. A proper bit of faked evidence takes time to properly craft. It has to look convincing enough to be believable as evidence at first glance, but not convincing enough to actually fool proper professional scrutiny, which is a delicate balancing act she hadn't even had time to start with. The framework was finished, but that was more like a list on everything she needed to do to properly frame herself in a way that it could be used to get tossed out as evidence and hopefully drag out further evidence in the process. And she couldn't just have that lying around. It rots so quickly and needs to be updated quickly. And she hadn't been quick enough, so it looked completely amateurish. I have an assistant by the name of Ashana. Have they heard her? You may want to distance yourself from her, ma'am, Janet says. She seems to be trying to frame you. However, a great deal is up in the air at the moment as the sheer volume of the data and evidence is giving numerous police precincts pause. Just what was found under there? An enormous complex larger than your mansion and utilizing a portal that led directly into your own office. It's not a good look. Furthermore, they have your DNA and eyewitness testimony of a hidden escape vehicle and more. We need to come up with a plan for all of this mess. And we will, Juliet states firmly. Well, if it isn't the stiffest snake to never die. Basilash rolls her eyes at Rikaxa's greeting before getting a six-armed hug from the nearly feral other woman. Nearby was a large table full of delectables and drinks for them both, and the warmed and soft floor was a joy to slither on. White noise generators kept the conversations private and killed the sounds bleeding in from outside as natural light lit up the chamber. Living on the top of a spire has benefits beyond the sheer amount of wealth needed to be there. Hello, Rikaxa now. What is it you want to speak about? Pleasure before business now, Miss Stiff. Relax a little and take things at a proper pace. I understand that you consider Centrus to be part of your common territory, but you know I'm only here for a short time. Not so much. There's a big mess that those little humans have shown a light on. I think you're going to be here for a bit. Oh? They share some opinions with you and have stumbled on a lot. I have a few daughters and friends of daughters in their ranks now, and the secrets that have been spilling out, the things those little monkeys have run into would make you shed months in advance, Rikaxa states in a dramatic tone. Then again, you did threaten that boy of yours to rot in the cell of his dead mother, and that's just woo chills. You and he both know that threat was emptier than the void between systems. It was, however, the only way to get him to actually listen and not break things as a very small child. Couldn't control him? The tone is teasing and light. Have you raised a primal from hatching? Basilash demands. Not yet. Well, let me assure you that his natural grasp of axiom, coupled with a lack of awareness and an immensely strong body, meant that my little hatchling was a right menace before he reached his double digits and calmed down. That's normally the time little snakelets start speeding up. It was like he had gone in a perfect circle. He had gone so hyper, he was thinking fast enough to behave himself and keep up with his actions. Oh yeah, I kind of remember doing that as a little wriggler. And by the time things could get worse, I had finally managed to get enough discipline in him for him to be thoughtful and considerate. You over-slithered a little with that one. He's been outright effeminated in ways. Clearly you haven't seen him upset then, and the proper term for a man is emasculated, which I did not do at any rate. Sure, Rikaxa says with a smirk. Right. Now that the required banter is out of the way, what do you wish to speak about? Just a bit of friendliness from one primal to another. I have a few extra homes on Centrus, and I'm letting you borrow one. This one to be specific. Thank you, but I do not think I will be here quite long enough to require one. I think you will. The case may be open and shut, but it reveals an enormous mess underneath. A mess that has tried, and mostly failed, to sweep my family and I into it, but not entirely. So I'll have you on the witness stand. One of my daughters, not the brightest but loyal and strong. I've had worse children. With the sheer quantity, I'd have to assume so. Basilash gives a gentle poke to her fellow primal, who shrugs in response. Law of averages, it can be a right bitch in practice.